Hello everyone, my name is Jennifer and welcome to Best Kept Plans. Today's video is going to be a monthly budget recap for January 2024 using the printable version of the Budget by Paycheck workbook from the Budget Mom. If you're interested in seeing that, please stick around. So this video is coming out later than originally planned. I had some life stuff going on at the beginning of February that I talked about in a little bit more detail in my January 2024 reading recap if you're curious to go watch that. But we are going to do my first monthly budget recap for 2024. I definitely got off track with regards to closing out my budgets and putting up monthly budget recaps in the second half of 2023. And so I really want to try and be very intentional with closing out my budgets in 2024 because I do think there's a lot of value in it. And I do think it'll really help my overall budgeting and my ability to save towards my goals. If we cut to January, everything here on our monthly spread is filled in or checked off. All of my bills were paid, all my savings challenges were contributed to. And then we're going to cut forward to my debt payment plan. So I currently have two sources of debt, which are Sikorsky, my car loan that I owe a little over $14,000 to, and then Nelnet, which are my student loans that I owe a little under $38,000 to. I have my minimum payments listed here. My Nelnet one is quite high, but my employer is currently contributing towards my student loan payments every month. So what I'm responsible for paying is not this $693.33. In the month of January, I did a regular payment of $400, even though it was really closer to $360 that I needed to pay. I did do a couple of extra payments towards debt in the month of January. I did a single Nelnet payment for $300, a car payment for $350, and then this last Nelnet one of $333.33 is the one from my employer. So total towards debt this month was $1,840.18. Now this monthly debt progress I couldn't really figure out because I didn't close out my budget in December 2023. So you'll see more on this come February's monthly budget recap. In terms of my overall debt progress, the number that we have listed here is from June 2022 when I first bought my car. That's what I had for my car and my student loans at that time. So a little under $71,000. We are now just under $52,000, which means my overall debt progress is $19,050.84, and I've made overall progress of 26.9%, which is very exciting. If we flip the page over, we're going to take a look at my monthly net worth tracker. Similar to the other page, I don't have last month's net worth up here because I didn't close out my budget in December 2023. When it comes to my net worth tracker, I do keep my specific assets to myself. So that's why there's a sticky note here. But my total assets are currently $325,551.46. And then my liabilities, which are my two sources of debt, are $51,859.48. So if I subtract my liabilities from my assets, we do have a total net worth for January 2024 of $273,691.98. And then this last month versus this month, I could not figure out because, again, I didn't do my closeout for December 2023. In the next page, we're really going to deep dive into my budget for January 2024. This is the monthly budget category breakdown, which I would say is my favorite sheet in the closeout section of the Budget by Paycheck workbook. The first thing that we are to do is to figure out my total monthly inflow. And I think I'm going to pull this down a little bit just because I don't want the focus to be a little whacked up. So total monthly inflow is basically your starting balance, earned income, other income, and savings used. So I brought in $491.77 from December 2023 to January 2024. My earned income, which for me is just my full-time job, was $6,991.90. Other income was $556.18. Savings used was $411, and therefore my inflow was $8,450.85. Now, next we have a list of all of my budget categories here. And when it comes to the monthly budget for each of these categories, usually what I do is I either allot what I budget per pay period and multiply it times 2 because I usually get paid twice a month, or I add up the usual expenses in that category and use that as a budgeted amount. So for groceries, I budget monthly $400 because I put $200 a pay period towards groceries. I spent $354.01, which means I was under budget by about $45. Eating out, I have been dealing with a lot of GI issues, and so for the last few months of 2023, I really wasn't spending any money on eating out, but I've got a better handle on what things are going to bother me versus not bother me, and so I did do some eating out in January. I ended up spending $120.89, which is almost $80 under my $200 monthly budget. For gas, I budgeted $150 but spent $73, so I was under budget for that. Miscellaneous is the money that I actually put in my miscellaneous envelope every pay period. So that's a total of $350 for the month because it's $175 per paycheck. I actually only spent $43 from my miscellaneous envelope in the month of January, which is really great. So I was way under budget by over $300. Miscellaneous bills is any unplanned spending that I don't have a different budget category for. So I never have a monthly budget for it, but I did spend $683.08. And then savings, I always want to save about half of my income or close to half of my income. So that's $3,000, and I ended up saving $3,781.49. So that's very exciting to be over budget in that category. Next, we have utilities, which is basically like my phone, internet, cable kind of a situation, and budgeted is $350, and I was just under that at $341 and change. Personal is things like Audible, Spotify, Kindle Unlimited, and I budget $70, but I did spend $47.24, so I was under budget by $22. Housing is just my rent at $600. I didn't actually pay my rent in January because I paid my January rent in December, and I got paid on February 1st, so I paid my February rent in February, so that's why there's nothing listed here. Giving is just my church contribution of $20, but I did do more giving in the month of January, so I was over budget in that category, which I'm totally fine with. Debt is going to be my car and student loan payments with a monthly budgeted amount of $1,150, but I did put $1,840 towards debt, so we were over budget by over $650, which I'm happy about. And then I had 3 different sinking funds that I spent out of: personal, medical, and subscriptions, and those amounts are listed here. The subscriptions was for my TCMC subscription. Medical was just for a bunch of copays and procedure things that I had to have done in trying to figure out what the heck is going on with my GI system. And then personal sinking fund, there was a couple of different things for this. There was a haircut. There's this kind of cool special thing that my friend and I ended up doing for Valentine's Day at one of our favorite vineyards. So that's what factored into there. Now, if I just add up these categories, I'm going to have a budget that doesn't balance, because the budget mom's method is a zero-based budget method, meaning every dollar that comes in should be going out, should have a plan for how it's being spent. And I did have money that I rolled over from January 2024 into February 2024. And so if I don't put that in here, it's not going to balance out. So that's why I have this amount in here, $738.68. That's what I rolled over into February. And once I add that in, I can add this whole monthly spent column together to get my total. And my total, whoops, I kind of want to get both in here. My total here should match my inflow up here, and it does. So our total for the month of January was $8,450.85, which means we were off by $0 in January. That's always super, super exciting. It's great when I'm off by $0, and I feel like that's a great way to start the new year. Now we're going to dive into the monthly debt and savings breakdown. Let's focus on debt first. My monthly inflow was, again, $8,450.85. I put $1,840.18 towards debt in January, which was about 21.8% of my inflow. The way that broke down was a little over $800 towards my car loan and a little over $1,000 towards my student loans. That is okay with me. I do want to pay off my car very quickly, but I'm realizing that once my employer is done contributing to my student loans, I don't want to have a ton left to continue to pay off. So I'm trying to push extra cash in there as much as possible now. So I'm happy with this being almost evenly split 50-50. I think that's going to work for me. When it comes to the savings section, we don't go based off of inflow, we go based off of income. And the reason for that is, as a part of our inflow, we include savings that we spent. And the budget mom doesn't think that that's appropriate to factor that in when we're talking about things that we save. So the income is used, which is basically everything listed on this top row here, except for savings used. So income for January was $8,039.85. We saved $3,781.49, which was 47% of my income. Very happy about that. And if we look at the way it broke down, over $1,200 went towards sinking funds, which was 32.6%. I had $160 going into my 2024 challenge. I had a little over $200 going into my 52-week challenge, $55 for my $5 challenge. My house savings got $1,916.49. That was about 50% of my savings. And then emergency fund got $214. So number one was house savings and number two was sinking funds. And I think that's perfect with regards to where my priorities lie. And then the last page in the recap is the monthly spending comparison, but I really couldn't do this sheet because I didn't close out my budget in December. So I did put in the values for January. That way I can easily look at this page next month when I go to close out my budget. But unfortunately, we weren't really able to do this page because I didn't close out my budget in December. So I want to just take you all through some of the other pages that I have in my budget book. If we go towards the back with my trackers and notes, the first thing we have is my $5 challenge tracker. So this tracker, as well as my $5 challenge envelope, which is right here, are available in my Etsy shop, which is always linked down below in the description box. There's a ton of resources on there, different trackers, different challenges. You have savings challenge envelopes, sinking funds envelopes, cash envelopes, a bunch of different stuff, as well as like some planner dashboards and stuff like that. And I'm keeping up with this, keeping track of this. I do have money in this $5 challenge envelope here. This was my money for January. I have a couple of bills over here that are for February that I didn't want to mix them up. So this should be $55 for January. I'm going to count it up, make sure it is 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55. And with this $55, we're going to pull out my $5 challenge jar. I have been putting money into this thing since I think 2021. I honestly feel like I can't even remember, but I'm just trying to stuff it up as much as possible until I can't get any more fives in it. And then this thing can only be opened by breaking it. So that's why I'm trying to stuff it up as full as possible before I actually break it. And so we're going to take all of the fives that I saved in January and we are going to attempt to stick them in here. I try to do this as neatly as possible to try to get as many fives as I can in here. So we're going to aim for the side over here. Let's see if we can get it. Oh, it looks like we got it. Perfect. Okay, so those fives are now in there. And then I'm going to put the fives that I actually have on the side here for February. This isn't even all of them. I have to pull the ones out for my February 15th paycheck as well, but this is for my first pay period. And then next we have my 2024 challenge. I just made this challenge up. I wanted a challenge that would guarantee me saving $2,000 throughout the year. And so what I ended up doing is basically deciding to just save $40 a week. That adds up to $2,080 for the year. I made a corresponding envelope, both of which again are available in my Etsy shop. So I have been doing this. And then we also have my 52-week challenge with its corresponding 52-week challenge envelope. This envelope is not what the envelope is supposed to look like. My printer was running out of ink when I printed this, and I was too lazy to print out a new one. So I'm doing the challenge in reverse this year. I loved doing it in reverse last year. I like saving the larger amounts in the beginning, and so I'm sticking with that for this year. And then I have my trackers. So I'm really dedicated to doing my trackers, to filling them out correctly this year. That's one thing that I kind of got off track with last year, and I just feel like trackers can be so motivating that I want to stick with them. So for house savings, I do have a house savings tracker, but I've never used this floral tracker that I have. So I decided to make this my house savings tracker for this year. And every pay period, I'm actually using a different color mild liner to fill this out. That way I can actually see every pay period what I ended up saving. So this is the first two paychecks in January. This one's the first paycheck in February. And then here's my car loan payoff tracker. If I finish this entire page, I will have paid my car off completely. So that's very exciting. And we have my first paycheck and then my second paycheck in January. And then lastly, we have my student loan payoff tracker. And this one, if I get to the end here, this will have been, I think, $10,000. Same thing with my house one. I'm pretty sure if I get to the end, it's $10,000. But we have first and second paychecks in January. So I am keeping up with my trackers. I do also have my credit score tracker, which I'm keeping up with. I have my net worth tracker that I'm keeping up with. I couldn't do the change amount here because I didn't figure out my net worth in December. So yeah, we're keeping up with all of the important things with regards to my budget. I'm feeling very on track with my budget, even though I've had some hits to my budget in January and very specifically in the beginning of February just due to life things. But I'm feeling like I have my budget back on track, back in my control, which is really good. And I'm hoping to keep that momentum going as we move through 2024. If you have any questions about the way that I budget or how I use the Budget by Paycheck workbook from the Budget Mom, please don't hesitate to put them down below. And as always, everyone, please be safe. Bye-bye.